We've all heard the stereotype. Vegetarians live longer, but is that actually true? Or is it just wishful thinking, dressed up as science? Here's the reality. Longevity isn't about a single food or a single diet. It's about how your everyday habits protect your body from the slow, silent processes of inflammation, oxidative stress, and metabolic decline. Being vegetarian doesn't guarantee a longer life, but research shows it can tilt the odds in your favor in ways most people don't even realize. So let's cut through the noise and look at what the science really says about vegetarian diets and longevity, and why some vegetarians live significantly longer while others see no advantage at all. Research studies consistently show that vegetarians tend to have lower risks of major chronic diseases, things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. These aren't minor findings. Cardiovascular disease, for example, is still the leading cause of death worldwide. If your diet lowers that risk, you're already stacking the deck for a longer life. One of the most cited studies comes from the Adventist Health Studies, which tracked tens of thousands of people over decades. Vegetarians in these groups lived, on average, about 7 years longer than their meat-eating counterparts. But here's the distinction. It wasn't just about cutting out meat. It was about an overall pattern of eating that emphasized whole, nutrient-dense plant foods. That distinction matters because simply avoiding meat while loading up on processed foods doesn't deliver the same longevity advantage. The protective effect comes from several biological mechanisms working together. First, plant-based diets reduce inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the biggest drivers of aging. It accelerates everything from heart disease to cognitive decline. Plant foods deliver antioxidants and phytonutrients that calm inflammation right down at the cellular level. Second, vegetarians often have lower cholesterol and blood pressure. LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol, is directly linked to plaque buildup in the arteries. By relying on plant proteins, nuts, seeds, and whole grains instead of meat, vegetarians reduce the raw materials that fuel plaque formation. Third, plant-based diets improve insulin sensitivity. That means a lower risk of diabetes, a condition that not only shortens lifespan but quietly damages organs for years before diagnosis. So the reason vegetarians often live longer isn't mysterious. It's the combined effect of reduced disease risk, less cellular stress, and stronger metabolic health, sustained over decades. Now here's where the conversation gets interesting. Not all vegetarians live longer. Why? Because longevity depends on quality, not just labels. A vegetarian who relies heavily on refined carbs, fried foods, or sugar can still face high risks of obesity, diabetes, or nutrient deficiencies. Researchers even have a name for this: the junk food vegetarian diet. It technically avoids meat, but it doesn't protect the body in any meaningful way. This is why two people can both call themselves vegetarians yet have completely different health outcomes. One thrives because their diet is diverse, nutrient-rich, and balanced. The other struggles because their version of vegetarianism is missing key building blocks. Longevity isn't about saying no to meat. It's about saying yes to the plant foods that keep your body strong and resilient. Let's dig deeper into nutrients. Some of the longevity advantage in vegetarian diets comes from higher intakes of dietary fiber, magnesium, potassium, and phytonutrients. Fiber, for example, lowers cholesterol, balances blood sugar, and supports gut health, three critical factors in slowing the aging process. But vegetarians also need to stay mindful of nutrients that are harder to get without animal products. Vitamin B12 is a prime example. Deficiency doesn't just sap energy. Over time, it can cause neurological damage that affects quality of life in older age. Omega-3 fatty acid, especially DHA, are another piece of the puzzle because they're essential for both heart and brain health. Vegetarians who pay attention to these nutrients through fortified foods, supplements, or targeted plant sources tend to close the gaps and keep the full benefits of a plant-based diet. Those who ignore them, they risk losing some of that longevity edge. If you want proof that plant-heavy diets support longevity, just look at the blue zones. These are regions of the world where people live the longest and the healthiest lives. Places like Sardinia in Italy, Okinawa in Japan, and Loma Linda in California. What stands out is that none of these communities are strictly vegetarian, but all of them center their diets on plants. Meat, if eaten at all, is rare and treated as a side note rather than the star of the plate. The real core of their diet, beans, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and fruits, aligns almost perfectly with what science shows drives long-term health. The lesson here is simple. Vegetarianism can be a powerful tool, but the true secret lies in the quality and diversity of the plant foods you eat. That's what ties these long-lived populations together. Another question people often ask is this: does switching to a vegetarian diet later in life still make a difference? The answer is yes. Studies show that even older adults who shift toward a more plant-centered diet can lower their risk of heart disease and stroke within just a few years. That means it's never too late to see benefits. A lifetime of habits matters, yes, but your body is always adapting. By improving what you eat, you reduce inflammation, improve circulation, and support brain health. Even if you start at 60 or 70, this is why longevity research often emphasizes both prevention and reversal. Diet changes don't just slow the aging process, they can actively improve key health markers at any age. Do vegetarians actually live longer? The science says, often yes, but it depends on how the diet is practiced. A plant-focused diet that's rich in whole, diverse, nutrient-dense foods consistently lowers the risk of the diseases that cut life short. Add in attention to key nutrients like B12 and omega-3s, and that longevity advantage becomes even stronger. But remember, longevity isn't about avoiding meat at all costs. It's about nourishing your body with the foods that protect it from the inside out. Because living longer isn't just about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years. Staying sharp, staying strong, and staying vibrant for as long as possible. And for vegetarians, that's not a promise of immortality, but it is one of the best evidence-based strategies we have for living well at any age. If this video resonated with you, there's so much more waiting for you on Plants Feed the Soul. Tap like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the very next video.